Just a heads up, this will be a compilation of several reviews for all the Castlevania games Dominus Collection, so there will be timestamps in the descriptions you can skip to a certain game, and there will be a spoiler bumper for Dominus Sorrow since it's a direct sequel of Aria of Sorrow, so there'll be spoilers for Aria of Sorrow in that section. So, thank you and enjoy the video. Originally released on the DS in 2008, Castlevania Order of Ecclesia came to be the third DS Castlevania game, which I didn't know what the third one going in because the Dominus Collection listed first, but people told me the Dominus Collection lists these games in chronological order than release order, so this is the first DS entry I played. Don't worry about that. But the premise is that since the Belmont clan have essentially just gone missing, in the case of Dracula coming back, humanity needs some contingency plan in order to stop him. That's where we come in with the Order of Ecclesia, who are essentially making a spell that'll be able to defeat Dracula if he return. And when Shinoa is going to be the bearer of this glyph, her colleague Albus ends up taking it and running off. And in the process, she lost all her skills, and memories, and emotions. So now she's tasked with essentially going after Albus and get the Dominus back. Which, like, damn, that just happened so fast. And I swear it's only 3 people in this one entire order because all we see is Shinoa, Albus, and Barlow. I don't think there's anyone else in this actual Order of Ecclesia, but hell, maybe it's just a club of 3 people, who knows. So the main gameplay is split into 2 parts. You have these more linear levels you go through. They're pretty fine, decent. They're linear levels they go through. Not a lot in terms of exploration. There are villagers you can find, and you do want to find them and rescue them all. Because they do also give you side quests in the village itself when you go back there. So there is reasons to save them, and also gonna get more side quests, more content. As for combat, you use glyphs, but every enemy has an affinity, so they have a weakness and resistance to certain glyphs and all that, which does sound pretty cool kind of thing, like, oh, exploiting the enemy's weakness. Problem is, there can be times where exploiting the enemy's weakness, but your attack is slower than just using a different glyph that's a lot faster to use but does less damage. Like, the one I used for most of the game was the Rapier glyph, because Shinoa can basically combo it back and forth so fast that it can generally get more damage off in a faster rate if I were to actually use a thing an enemy's weak to, especially a spell which takes longer to cast. So that I felt was kind of weirdly balanced in, oh, you want to emphasize weakness, but the weakness may not even be that good or be able to apply that much damage at the time compared to just a different melee ability. I also don't like how this means that glyphs that have a long windup essentially can just be useless, because why can you see such a long windup they're not going to do much at all because of the enemy's affinity. So that's kind of one entire weird aspect when it comes to combat. The fact that you have like things with long windup that may not even do a damn thing, or you have things that be quick but may end up just doing more damage in the long run because of the fact that they can get more hits off. But I do like the fact you actually can, when you get a piece of the Dominus back, actually use it in gameplay yourself. That's a cool thing. It's not just a story thing. It's a thing that you yourself can use in combat, and that is pretty cool. Boss fights are where this game's quality starts going down for me. Like, the boss fights are unique and cool, but the problem is not the bosses themselves, it's this game's abuse of contact damage. Like, the damage you take whenever you so much as touch a boss can at some points be more damaging than the actual boss attack itself. And I don't like that since the game, most of the bosses are like these giant things. Trying to avoid contact damage can just be such a pain to do. Like, there's one boss in particular where you have to stand on its back in order to try to hit its weak point, but parts of its back can deal contact damage for some reason, meaning trying to find the spot where you're even allowed to stand on while also dealing damage gets super annoying super quick, and it just pisses me off so much how much contact damage is freaking abused in this game. There is one boss in this game that doesn't have contact damage, which actually shocked me, and then just seeing how much easier it was to just shred the boss when they didn't have contact damage. There's the fact that it's not just contact damage itself. Contact damage has always been Castlevania, I know, but it's the sheer level of it combined with these giant bosses. Like, god damn, it feels like contact damage is abused to hell and back in this game with the boss fights. I don't like that at all. Now, there's a good and bad ending in this game, and I find it interesting that bad endings to lock you into it, like you're able to go back to your previous save file if you get it. So it feels like it's more intentional to get the bad ending initially. But what I don't like is the requirements for the good ending have like nothing to do with the actual good ending itself. It's one of those things of, it feels like a requirement for the sake of a requirement, not because it actually fits what the game is trying to do exactly. And then there's the problem of once you're on the pathway to the good ending, it basically unlocks the second half of the game entirely, which is all located in one level that is now actually trying to be like a Metroidvania, but it's more diet Metroidvania because it's way more basic in how it does. It has interconnectivity and all that, but just not a lot of it or the stuff that actually matters. So it still feels incredibly linear. This is still an overall linear game and not really like a Metroidvania. This is a problem. This feels weird how the second half of the game is all just one level, you know? One thing I really like about the glyph system is that if enemies are casting a spell, you can actually absorb that spell for yourself as well. It just interrupts their attack to do it, which is cool, not only getting new abilities for Shinoa, but also eventually be a counter for some enemies, including some bosses. They can just take their spell right from them, and do it multiple times even, which is a super cool way of handling the glyphs, being able to just go like, no, mine. But what I don't like is when it comes to regular enemies that don't have spells and stuff, the glyphs are basically random as you get them, which I don't like the RNG aspect of it because these are my moveset entirely, you know? Kinda need these things, so having to be like RNG or them spawning in a place run by enemies means, oh, I might just miss out on the glyph because enemies are still around kind of thing. So, I wish that was handled a bit better. Like, I know some Castlevania games have the RNG thing, like Circle of the Moon, and Circle of the Moon, or Aria of Sorrow also has RNG store get abilities, but it just, you know, becomes annoying because of the whole RNG aspect of it when that's my main method, that's my main repertoire, you know? I also like just how quick it is for Shinoa to die in the game. Like, certain portions she can only take like a small amount of hits and then she's dead. Meanwhile, the bosses are like some of the most tankiest enemies I've seen in a Castlevania game, my god. So that's why I don't like the bosses. They take forever to kill at points, and it gets ridiculous. Like, oh my god. Like, I just find the bosses so frustrating. Like, it's like the main issue of the game. I hate the boss fights. They take so long to kill, and they're just, like, moveset wise, it's interesting what they do. But then it's like, who cares about the movesets? The fact that they abuse contact damage is the annoying part. I'm dying not from your actual attack. I'm dying because we happen to freaking mingle in the same pixel for a second. So that's just fine annoying about Order of Ecclesia. So overall, I want to say I still kinda overall like Order of Ecclesia. Like, the combat is still fun, exploration, while not the big emphasis, is still cool to do. Fighting villagers, doing side quests is also a cool thing to add. I just wish that also something just done better, like the boss fights contact damage wasn't so abusive, or if I think they weren't all so massive, making it so contact damage wouldn't be such a huge issue to go against, you know? And I just wish like that was better. Also, there's one point in the game where the game asks you to use something, but doesn't tell you how to use it, because the game lets you have like a basic attack and a power-up attack using Hearth's version, but it doesn't tell you it wants to use the Hearth's version of the attack. So I'm over here doing something that the game gives me 5 seconds to figure out before it just instantly kills me. And it's one of those things that's like, okay, you need to explain that one better. Like, come on. How am I supposed to know what I'm supposed to do? Like, I have to actually look up what I'm supposed to do in that sequence because the game doesn't mention it. It just says, use this thing. Well, I'm using it, it's not working. So that need a better explanation than just saying, use the thing. But overall, I want to say more on the positive aspects with Order of Ecclesia. Like, I wish it was just a lot better. I'm surprised this was the third DS entry, because I would have expected it from the first DS entry, like Working Out Kings. But apparently some people say some of the issues in this game are apparently overcorrection from Portrait of Ruin and Dawn of Sorrow. So I'll know when I get to those. This is me from the future, having finished Dominus Collection. Order of Ecclesia was made by someone who tried to overcorrect issues from Portrait of Ruin and Dawn of Sorrow, where they try to emphasize magic here more. Magic's still not useful, so no real point to use over your melee attacks. And also, money is very stingy in Order of Ecclesia, compared to the other two games, where it's more plentiful, so you can buy more items more frequently. And yeah, I just feel like Order of Ecclesia is the epitome of someone being upset that the ideas they had for the previous two games were not really used that well, so I try to pretty much force down your throat in Order of Ecclesia to bad effect. That's what I say for the future. Back to the past me. But overall, want to say more positive, leading towards it's still a good game overall. Castlevania Portrait of Ruin is the second DS entry, and the one that also haven't heard much about, aside from people bitching about the freaking switch between characters where they constantly put their voice clip, which feels really overblown. But let's actually get to the game itself. The main premise is that after the events of World War II, when humanity is in a huge bout of darkness, Dracula's castle shows up because nothing good can ever just happen. So our main characters, Jonathan and Charlotte, go in to investigate. Jonathan is actually from the Morris family and actually has a vampire killer, but he's unable to use it. He's also the son of John Morris from Castlevania Bloodlines, which is interesting thing to reference for this game, but alright. So now it's up to the duo to investigate the castle, Jonathan being a more melee character, with Charlotte emphasizing magic. But despite Dracula's castle being back, Dracula's actually not the one in control of it. Instead, a painter named Bronner is actually the one in control of the castle, trying to use the power of Dracula for his own ends. So the main gameplay of Portrait of Ruin is Metroidvania style, so essentially you explore the place, find new power-ups, use those power-ups to explore more places, and you have a whole entire level-up mechanic, with this game also having equipment you can get, especially for Jonathan, who's more melee focused, the King's vampire killer. He has to use all sorts of different weapons. He also has Charlotte, who also has spells she can find equipped, and books, but Charlotte's not exactly good in this game. Like, the game wants to emphasize the duality of having two different characters you can play as, including the ability to have them both be on the same time with one being controlled by the AI. But Charlotte's magic just isn't as powerful or as useful as it really should be in order to make her up to Jonathan's level. And she gets less equipment than Jonathan as well, which is even weirder, especially barely any books for her to use as a weapon. And on top of that fact, there's the fact that you can actually have one of the characters use a support ability with the R button. But the thing is, Jonathan's sub-weapon aren't as good as the so-called support ability compared to Charlotte's spells, probably do way better. So Charlotte's just better off as being a secondary person, with Jonathan being in the front, since he has better equipment for defense, better weapons to take on enemies. It just feels very lopsided in Jonathan's favor of making him the person to play as over Charlotte. It's even weirder, there's actually one boss in the game who has the ability to charm Jonathan. So you would think this would be a time to have Charlotte's ability be emphasized because Jonathan's unplayable for his boss fight as he gets charmed. But instead, it just leads to Charlotte getting annihilated because the boss is resistant to magic, so what little power Charlotte did have is even worse in this fight, and since all Jonathan's also working against you, it just means you're gonna die. It's just like feeling this would have been the one point to highlight Charlotte's abilities, but instead it's just pretty much a death sentence if Jonathan becomes unusable, which just highlights the lopsidedness of this whole entire dynamic. One character is way more useful than the other, and there's just no reason to really be using Charlotte's magic and abilities unless they're trying more for a challenge run. To Order of Ecclesia, enemies do have weaknesses and resistances that's supposed to highlight using certain weapons or using magic against them, but just like Order of Ecclesia, you don't know what the resistances are until after they're defeated, making a one-time thing pointless. Once again, even if you use magic for the weakness, it's still going to do less damage than Jonathan can just do over time. Even if Jonathan's doing less damage than Charlotte, he can still do that damage faster than Charlotte can. So once again, just a weird lopsidedness to the whole entire dynamic where one character is way better than the other. Like I mentioned, you're able to actually bring about the other character as an AI companion, and when they take damage, they actually end up taking damage to your MP bar instead, which is a cool idea, but you also have the dual skills in this game that require using a lot of MP in order to pull off, so you're probably better off just not having the AI companion with you, especially since they'll be less efficient than just controlling the character yourself. So it's just a weird system with so many different ideas they put in this game generally don't amount to much because the usefulness of it just isn't that good. The bosses tend to be challenging, so I wish more of them really took advantage of the whole entire, co-op aspect having the two characters. And I know the final boss has more abilities, but I swear he didn't use any of them, leading to a pretty disappointing finale where the boss barely fought back. And that was kind of sad because it was a pretty cool setup, but that's the big disappointment. Also, some bosses that feel like they're just here for the sake of adding another boss and don't really have any unique moveset to them. The different interest about this game is that despite having a whole big castle to explore, there are also other exploration bits that are locked behind these portraits, so there's also controlled smaller maps to explore on top of the overall bigger map of Dracula's castle, which is an interesting dynamic to have. This whole entire aspect of here are smaller, more controlled spaces to explore, that you still have the whole aspect of getting cool abilities, those abilities to go to new places, but then you also have the bigger castle, which is more interconnected, where to find passageways to those portraits and those areas, which is super cool, and I think that's really well done. So it's like Order of Ecclesia, the game does have both a good and bad ending, and it is designed to get the bad ending and then the good ending, with you even getting crumbs to get the good ending after getting the bad ending. So I feel like the crumbs aren't as sufficient compared to Order of Ecclesia, where it's more direct what you need to do, while here it's, hey, here's a problem, and now go find a solution. Where to find a solution? I don't know, just rub your face on everything in the entire castle to eventually find it, I guess. So I feel like it could have been a bit more direct on exactly where to go or to find the thing you're looking for, you know? And with the fact that once you're launched with a good ending, they basically have you go through more locations that basically just reuse the entire locales you've already been going through, but now it's like, hey, new locales, except not really, but it just feels like it's padding things out. I also understand because the game's also short, it can be like 5 to 6 hours, so I understand they want to add more things to do before the climax, but it also feels weird that the story's set up to go to the climax, but we're not there yet because now I gotta do this first now. Although there is one optional boss fight you can do in order to get a powerful weapon, they should definitely do. Although it is easily the most difficult boss fight in the entire game, but it is super cool, and you should definitely do it if you're going for the good ending of this game. Overall, I just really like Castlevania Portrait of Ruin. I like the exploration, I like the areas you visit, I like the boss fights. There's some of them I feel like they could have been a bit more challenging. Although, like I said, I wish the whole entire two-character idea was more fleshed out and everything, because right now just feels like Jonathan is just the way to go with Charlotte as a backup. So she can't really stand on her own or anything in this game, and her magic isn't that helpful. So I just wish more was done with that. But that's all we gotta say about Castlevania Portrait of Ruin. It's a pretty cool game, and well, I just really like it. That is all. This video features spoilers for Castlevania Aria of Sorrow, since Dinosaur's direct sequel to it, so I'm mentioning major plot points from Aria of Sorrow. But hey, I'm putting a spoiler bumper so that you know this going in ahead and don't get surprised by spoilers. This is a courtesy, not a mandate. Alright, let's go. In the first DS Castlevania title, Castlevania Dominus Sorrow is a direct sequel to the famously well-beloved Castlevania Aria of Sorrow, so that made sense to follow it up as the first DS entry. And boy, does it feel like the first DS entry because of the touchscreen gimmicks, but oh, we'll get into that! In Castlevania Aria of Sorrow, it was revealed that Selma Cruz is reincarnation of Dracula, but through the help of his friends, he managed to prevent turning into Dracula. However, in Dominus Sorrow, there is now a cult that now wishes to try and bring back Dracula because one isn't that one, but because Selma Cruz is an unwilling participant, they actually plan to kill off Selma Cruz so that way another person can obtain the power of Dracula, with there already being 2 candidates primed for the role. And they try to jump someone with a skeleton. How lowly do they think of Selma Cruz to think, ah yes, a skeleton, that'll be the thing to end him? And then to have the balls of Arcano give me a freaking knife, dude, I know who you are, you can do way better than that. Gameplay wise, Dominus Sorrow is the most straightforward Metroidvania entry. You got a large map that's connected, you got abilities to help you traverse the map in order to reach new locations, get your RPG system with equipment, and with the magic this time around, it's like Aria of Sorrow. So you're able to equip 3 different things, one that's activated by using up any attack, one's activated by hitting the R button, and one that's just there by default. How you get their abilities? You get them from enemies, although the drop rates can be real good or sometimes really bad, because it's all dependent on the RNG, and I hate to find this one point where you need certain abilities, you can spend the entire game killing those enemies and not get those abilities to go back or to grind them. It's so weird, but that's the power, that's so much power of dominance for you. I like the fact that you can also go to the item shop and actually also buy parts of the map, so it gives you a good indication early on of what places that are part of the map you may not be able to get to yet or you can get to now. So that is pretty cool, and you can also upgrade your weapons. Granted, you have the soul required, which once again, RNG can hate you, so you could just not be interacting with that much. I didn't interact with it much because I didn't have the proper souls for me. I wanted them upgraded, but those are cool additions you can do. And now for the thing Dominus Sorrow is effing infamous for. I mentioned earlier that Dominus Sorrow is the first DS Castlevania title, which means it also has touchscreen gimmicks. How they decided to do this is the most obnoxious way possible. Throughout the game, you will find seals. You need these seals in order to get to the bosses, and you need to use these seals on the boss after defeated. You need to draw these seals with your Dominus Collection, it's through button prompts, but if you draw it incorrectly, then the boss will gain some HP, you have to go back to fighting it. This alone is the worst thing in the game, and actually really can alter how you feel about the game. Because these seals get complicated to draw, there's an invisible time limit to how long you can take to draw one of these seals, and the game only flashes the seal when you go into the room and not when you're about to draw it, just to remember what the pattern was to begin with. Like I said, some of these seals get complicated, so you can be stuck trying to repeatedly make this seal and failing over and over. If I did have the rewind ability, Dominus Collection, I probably wouldn't have fun in this game, I'll be real with you, because the seal thing got super annoying, where I can rewind several times and still be getting the seals wrong, and I'm like, what do you want from me? This mechanic is just a horrible idea. It also means you need another item in order to even get to the boss rooms to begin with. And it's just super annoying, like, oh my god. I know people said, oh, the seals were offered to draw them in the DS version. Bro, they're annoying here, even with button prompts. This is just a bad idea, because it just makes the boss fights take longer, and these aren't easy bosses. Well, some of them are easy, but most of them are, so it's just really weird how this whole entire handled. And just, I know, early DS game, gotta have DS gimmick conclusion, but not like this. And third verse, same as the first, there are bad endings that you are assumed to already get, because the game takes that into account and allows you to really save data before the bad ending in order for you to get a better ending. But I will say, there are actually multiple endings this time around when it comes to Dominus Sorrow, and there's one bad ending you really want to get, because it actually unlocks an entire new gameplay mode, which I'm surprised it's locked behind a bad ending. But so yeah, there's one of the bad endings that you definitely want to get just to get a new gameplay mode out of it, which is pretty cool. Overall, Castlevania Dominus Sorrow is just really good, and with the rewind mechanic from Dominus Collection, I guess the issue with the seals basically become moot, because you can just retry over and over and over and over if you wanted to, which you definitely should, because the seals are BS. But without the rewind, oh my god, I can't stand the seal system, it's so freaking annoying. But aside from that, everything else is great. The exploration's super cool, the abilities you get, pretty fun to use, the boss fights are also really good. I was a really good time. I will say this is the one entry throughout the entire Dominus Collection where there were points where I legitimately had no idea how to progress, and basically had to look up stuff at times in order to find which direction to go. So that may just be a me thing, but overall, Dominus Sorrow is just really good, and I don't know what to say, just me from the future again. I asked someone to mention, oh my god, slide puzzles. This is just me, but I hate slide puzzles. The video games, they're the worst kind of puzzles ever imaginable. This will not bug most people, and it doesn't make the game worse for having it. It's just, you know, a type of puzzle. Just personally, I despise slide puzzles, including the one on screen. Like, I actually got the idea what the slide puzzle actually going for, and I kept overthinking it because of the numbers, but I just freaking hate slide puzzles in their existence, and I want to add that in because, hey, that's a me thing that many probably don't know about, my despising of slide puzzles. Doesn't affect my rating of the game whatsoever. Still a great game, but slide puzzles can go burn. So yeah, that's what I want to bring up. Really good entry, and definitely takes advantage of all the cool stuff Aria of Sorrow did. Although I wish that the art style was like Aria of Sorrow. I know it's a major thing that people really like to bring up, the art style shift between Aria of Sorrow and Dominus Sorrow, because why is it like this? Why did we go away from perfection? But yeah, outside of that, Dominus Sorrow just really good. Haunted Castle is originally an arcade game spin-off of Castlevania that was released back in the day, but in the Dominus Collection, actually got effectively remade with Haunted Castle Revisited, and I am so surprised they included this, and I feel like it doesn't really get much of the marketing when it comes to the Dominus Collection. So this should be a big feature advertised. It's not even with the main roster of games, unlike an extra menu in Dominus Collection for some reason. The purpose of Haunted Castle is that Simon just got married, and his wife immediately gets kidnapped by Dracula. Damn, what a dick. So, Simon must go fight Dracula in order to get his wife back. Just straight to the point. So the main gameplay of Haunted Castle is classic Castlevania. side-scrolling action, got your whip, you get sub-weapons or candles, and I find it interesting how the cross is a big, giant, freaking full-screen attack as opposed to being a boomerang, because you also get a boomerang in this game as well. So I wish that when you dropped one of your sub-weapons, you actually pick it up again, but once you pick up a sub-weapon, it immediately replaces the one you had before. You also find orbs to upgrade your whip, but there's a tier upgrade that actually is temporary, which actually makes the whip even more powerful. And that is super cool. Also, I know this game is an arcade game, so levels can't be too long, but the fact that each level is like roughly around like 6 minutes or so, including a boss fight, it's also pretty cool. So even if you die, you don't really lose a lot of progress. And hell, even if you die and get to continue, you actually get restarted back to the boss as well. Even on the second phase of final boss, you get put back there to continue. So that is super cool, especially since this is a one-game Dominus Collection that has no rewind and no save points. The one game you would think to put it on, and they don't. So you have 6 levels, each ending with a boss fight, and the boss fights are just super cool in this game, especially just like how Content Castle Revisited looks, and just the boss fights, the well, the animated way they function, just super cool. Not anything groundbreaking or super run, especially not from a game under 1997, but it's just super fun to play, and the fact that it has a short runtime makes it very playable as well. Just super cool game, and just I don't know if else to be said about that. It's just a super cool game that they included. It's a surprise of surprise. We remade this arcade game that people generally wouldn't even think of that we would even do. Because I've never heard Haunted Castle get brought up really once ever. So seeing this get so much love, although I wish it was advertised more Dominus Collection, it's just super cool to include. It's just super fun addition, and the final boss of this game is also a super fun final boss I thought of. It's just a really fun fight. It's just super cool game. Like, it's not really too complicated. It does have like the usual Castlevania, and I'm gonna trick you with this, but if you're more accustomed to that, you'll see it coming, and it's not as bad as compared to, like, let's say the NES era Castlevania games, where once again we're losing those games. People got major setback because here losing, it can be a minor setback, not much. Hell, you can fall into a pit and not get a game over. You just lose some health. So it is very generous, although it's going to be a bit too generous because I swear there are times you can basically just power through bosses' attacks and just keep on attacking because you'll deal more damage faster and they'll do damage to you. So I feel like that may be something people would take issue with, but not a major thing, especially for this very short game. Just a fun as hell game, super cool arcade game, and I'm glad they remade it for this whole entire collection as well. That's just super fun, though I wish it was more prominent with the other games and not put away on a side tab.